afternoon. Welcome to session 2 of World History. So, of course, I have to introduce the team today because without them, I don't know where I'd be. So, I am Mohammed, Dr. H, and my favorite moderator is back again today, Shadna. What she will be doing is feeding me your questions and comments. So there will be a little bit of a delay before I get to your question. But what I do promise is I will get to them. And of course, Brian, without whom none of this would be possible. He's actually doing double duty today. Both him and Shadna, actually, they just got off our physics session. So welcome to AP World History for today. Our agenda, it's very similar to yesterday's agenda. This one is I'll get into some of the changes between what we're looking at in 2021 between the paper and pencil and the digital, as well as a little bit about the differences between the 2020 and the digital in 21. How to prepare for AP World History, and the focus today is on the short questions. And of course, how we at Princeton Review can help you with your AP prep. Not just world history, but all the others. So the dates for AP, we looked at these. The May 10th is 8 a.m. local time. It is the paper, and it is offered only in your school. May 20th and June 3rd, these are digital. The digital ones are offered at 12 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So they're coordinating the times, which means you could be taking it earlier or later. These digital ones, depending on what your coordinator, what your school decides, it will be either administered at school or at home. And that's a decision your school needs to make. You can't make that decision as a student. So this would be a good, if you want to find out more about that, your school AP coordinator would be a good person to at least start. And if you don't know who that person is, talk to your counselor. They will be able to direct you to the right person. Okay, so I showed the slide yesterday, and this was, of course, for the paper and pencil test, the traditional test, as they call it. So there's a multiple choice, 3 to 4 questions per stimulus, 40%, 55 minutes. Short answers, 1 and 2 are mandatory. For number 3, basically you have 2 options. There's no stimulus, and you select 1 out of 2. And that's 20% off your section 1. Your section 2 is document-based, so you have 1 essay. You're looking at 7 documents. One of them is a non-textual document. The others are generally textual. 60 minutes, including the reading time, and then a long essay where you select 1 topic out of 3. Now, this will be for the first administration. This is for the paper administration. For the digital administration, you still have the multiple choice. This is not different. There are some minor differences in the way the paper and pencil differs from the digital. I'll talk about that on the next slide. The short answers, well, you have a primary source, you have a map source, and then a primary image source. And if you are looking at this pretty carefully, you said, hey, my choice went away. Yeah, your choice went away. This is what happened. You don't have an option here. It's still 20% of your weight. It's still 40 minutes. Now the document base is still there. All right, so here it's about the same as what you had before. But instead of the long questions, now you got 2 short questions. Here, the paper and pencil had a long question. Pick one. But here you actually have 2 short questions. One is the source with data, and the other one is a secondary source. So it's just as long as the long question, but it's actually 2 short answers. Okay, pretty cool. This is something that your school will tell you as well. Now, as far as the major differences go, so the paper and pencil has 3 short answer questions, 1 DBQ, document-based question, and 1 long essay question. And there's some level of optionality. The digital, 3 short answer questions, just as you had here, 1 DBQ, just as you had here, and instead of the 1 long essay question, you have 2 short answer questions. No options here, no options at all. And some of the changes that you will notice in 2021, if you took the test last year, this year you will actually need a laptop or a desktop. So no smartphone, no tablet. Last year you could handwrite or photograph your take pictures of your work and send them in. Can't do that this year. All responses go through your keyboard. Now, there is no out of order answering of questions. This means your multiple choice are in that question. When you're looking at the short answer questions, while you are working within a question, you can move back and forth. But after you answer the last part of that question and move to the next question, that's it. You can't go back. And that is primarily for trying to curb cheating and things like that. That's what College Board is trying to do here. That's why they've actually said, no, you can't go back. Last year, you needed a continuous internet connection. So if your internet crashed partway through, you were in trouble, and there were some people that got upset about it. This year, if you start your test, you need an internet connection when you start your test. If you lose your internet connection, you can still continue. And then as you're ending your test, you will need an internet connection as well. You will be given a 20-minute break between section 1 and section 2, but you can't leave. You still got to be at your computer, and you need to check in 30 minutes before the start of the test. I think this is the same as last year. Last year you had to check in 30 minutes before the start of the test. Now, all of these changes means that you will now need to upload the new software for 2021. If you uploaded software last year, it will not work for this year. So make sure that you work with your school. Make sure that you work with your school's IT to make sure that the devices that you are using are actually compatible. Okay. The best person for more information about this is actually your AP coordinator in school. They know more about this stuff, and the word of caution I will give you is that a lot of these basically are based on a late February announcement and then clarifications from there. So watch out, because things may change. So keep monitoring to make sure that these are indeed where they would be. We know what happened last year, so these may change as there are other considerations that are brought up, and College Board tries to accommodate those while trying to keep. There are a couple things they're trying to do. They're trying to keep security or academic integrity at the highest levels, and you got to applaud them for that. And they're trying to give students as much flexibility as possible within the parameters of security. So that's what they're trying to do, and you got to applaud them for that. Will they stumble? Yes, they will. They will stumble and they will learn, and we may not agree with all the changes that they make, but at least it seems like from their announcements they are trying. Okay, this is the curriculum. Now, last year, portions of the curriculum, the ones at the bottom, were deleted because of the shortened. In some cases, for some schools, there was a shortened academic year. Awesome! I'm glad it was helpful. This year, they're not shortening the curriculum. this is it. They're going to go with the full curriculum. They figured over the summer, schools had time to work through whatever issues they had and work through them effectively. So now the expectation, at least from College Board, is that the schools will be able to go and provide uh, instruction that will cover what we think or what they think should be covered in an entire academic year. So they're not going to take things away this year. This is what it is. Okay, so prepping for the world history, and once again, what I have here is I have 4 example questions. If we go through them, if will we go through all 4 of them? Well, if we do, that's going to be great. If we don't, well, I do want to go through at least 2. I think I was planning on we would be able to go through 3, and depending on how things work out, we may be able to cover the 4th one. What I did, given given that a lot of these questions are based on a stimulus, all the examples I have here actually are stimulus examples. So this is what you will see on all the digital, and on 2 out of 3 of the paper and pencil. And typically when they give you a stimulus, this is essentially what they give you. So here's a sample question. Okay, the picture that they will give you is black and white. Um, I I like to give you color pictures, at least in a format like this. So I gave you the color picture here. So when they give you a picture like this, what do you do? Well, okay, so you look at the picture. Sometimes it may help if you recognize it. Sometimes it may not help. Typically, what they're trying to give you are things that you have seen or are not. They're not trying to give you something obscure. Um, you may not know about it, but wherever that picture was taken or wherever that painting was, it's pretty famous. So, and they give you a description out here. So this is Mansa Musa depicting is depicted holding a gold coin, and it is from the Catalan Atlas, 1375. Okay, and that's why all of this is not in Arabic or in Hausa, which is the language that's native to Mansa Musa. The question: identify and explain one symbol presented in the image above, and then identify and explain one way in which Mansa Musa was able to expand the Malian Empire. So here is your clue, right? This is about Mali, which means they are looking at West Africa. And so now one of the things to do is to actually answer the question. It is amazing that people want to write so much that they actually, in their writing, write what is in their head about what they see and end up not answering the question. For short answer questions, that is one of the most common and saddest ways to lose points, because by not answering the question, the grader can't give you points. And the grader may want to may want to say, look, this student obviously knows his or her stuff, but because they didn't answer the question, I can't give them any points. Okay, so let's take a look at this, and I was hoping that as I was chatting away, that you guys were thinking about what are some of the symbols here in this picture. And if there are any, yes, Shadna will bring them over to me. Remember to look at not just the main figure, but also the surroundings. Yes, it's actually a gold coin that he's holding, but yes, it is the gold. Yeah. Oh, nice. Nice work. Did Chatna say superstar? Is that what she said? And I guess you get a superstar clip art here. Yeah, see, I hope you like aviator sunglasses, Joseph. Okay, so gold coin, what else? What else is gold as well that will strike out at you, that you will really, really see? Apart from the coin, it's also gold. That's a good question. Are there specific answers or will any answer be accepted? The reason for these questions is to actually guide your thinking within certain boundaries. So, as a test writer, what they're trying to do is they are trying to give you a platform where you can showcase the knowledge about, in this case, West Africa and the Malian Empire. In general, Mansa Musa specifically, he was the most famous king from there. Now, what's a good answer? Well, a good answer has to conform to what they give you. They are giving you a picture. So if you depict something that's not in the picture, uh, no, then you will not get credit for that. Um, there are several ways to answer a given picture. Yes, there are also some wrong ways to answer uh, a question in the picture. So as long as you're answering the question, you're backing things up from whatever they give you. They ask you, they whatever stimulus they give you, you can find it there or can point to it. You should be okay. And here we get into one of these things where how do you know that you are actually doing what you're supposed to be doing? So that's one area. Well, you know that, that's why you put it down, otherwise you wouldn't. The next piece is how do you let the grader know that you're actually staying within the boundaries? Because realize some of these graders are grading a ton of these essays. They are spending very little time per essay. So if you make a nuanced point, they're not going to get it. So as far as writing standardized essays, what do you want to do? Well, you want to keep your sentences short. Yeah, I missed it. I'll get to that question in a little bit. Okay, so writing for standardized essays, what you want to do, I said, keep your sentences short, define your terms if needed, and tie back reference back to question or stimulus. Now, if there's a no stimulus question, there there are still boundaries, and those boundaries are actually in the question themselves. They will ask you to identify and explain something in, let's say, the feminist movement of the early 1900s or something like that. So when they ask you to do that, they are actually narrowing your scope. They want you to look at that, and then they want you to look at long-term effects of it later on. For instance, that could be a no stimulus question. So no matter what kind of question you're looking at, there will be boundaries within which you are expected to talk about it. Now, at the same time, the feminist movement was happening here in the U.S. We also had this notion of racial equality happening at the same time. And sometimes those movements intersected and sometimes they didn't. So if you end up writing primarily about racial equality for a feminist type essay with no stimulus, you stand a chance of losing points. So be careful about that. Okay. So the first thing that we said here was the gold coin. If you are looking carefully, you also saw a crown. Come on. There we go. Which is also gold and fairly prominent. If you look at the background, what you will notice is you will see that a castle here, and you will see mosques. Okay, so other things you may notice, be a castle and a mosque. Now notice so far that there's nothing new here. This is basically what is from the picture. Now, what do you know about essentially the symbolism here? Well, the gold coin is actually from gold deposits in Africa. Oh, come on. Okay, so these are from the gold deposits. Mansa Musa was actually considered the richest man in the world during his time. So, when you think of Mansa Musa, think of like Jeff Bezos right now, or a few decades ago, Bill Gates, who was considered the richest man in the world. So that's basically the kind of recognition he had. As far as a crown, that of course means power. The crown and the castles would indicate the symbols of power. And yes, he was pretty powerful. The mosque would be piety. He gave generously to to various areas. Actually, his generosity was so great that when he went on a pilgrimage, he actually passed by Cairo, and he tipped the people so much with gold that they had inflation for like a decade or so. The price of gold went down compared to other things for that long after he went through. So if you know that, that's great. You're not expected to know that, but certainly he was. I mean, from your books, you would know that he was known for his generosity. So this is what you want to do, and this is how your essay would can start. Here are the symbols that are represented in the image above. Typically, A is meant to be an easier prompt than B, and as you see, B gives you a little bit more latitude, but requires a little bit more thinking as well. So B says, identify and explain one way in which Mansa Musa was able to expand the Malian Empire. So how did he expand the Malian Empire? One iconic thing he did, and this is basically what the graders are looking for. He established Timbuktu. If you know about his Hajj to Mecca, um, they don't always they don't always know about his Hajj to Mecca. But yes, if you know those, if you know about his Hajj to Mecca, go for the mosques, and that gives you extra points, or at least, if not extra points, at least a more favorable consideration from the grader. But that's nice. Yes, yes, yes. I was going to talk a little bit about that towards the end, but yes. Uh, Actually, no, it strengthened the trade networks for him. The trade was already great because he was already extremely wealthy when he went on his Hajj. So be careful when you say that he went on his Hajj and that made Islamic alliances for the trade network. It was actually the other way around. The trade alliances allowed a couple of things, right? So the trade networks in the sub-Saharan uh, what they call the Greater Sudan. And today we think of Sudan as a small country, but actually it was the southern edge of the Sahara Desert was considered Greater Sudan. Uh, Greater Sudan actually became Islamic because of the trade routes. Okay, uh, so don't get the relationship backwards. That doesn't work well. Okay, so you can say that his Hajj allowed him to strengthen networks, and that did bring in more scholars to Timbuktu, more scholars from around the world. So he established Timbuktu, which was at that time one of the it was the wealthiest country, the wealthiest city in the known world, in uh, uh, in his known world. So remember, the Americas had not been discovered yet by these people, but certainly they were aware of Europe, they were aware of India and China, they were aware of the Middle East, and they were aware of Africa. So within that realm of the known world, it was the wealthiest city. They did not know Australia either. So the establishment of Timbuktu meant that you had trade, you had scholarship, and actually some of those manuscripts are still there today from Mansa Musa's time. They are families that actually take care of them. Unfortunately, since we've had radicalization, some of those manuscripts have now been lost. They have been burnt, but they are there, and we are very fortunate that some brave souls have been making digital copies of those manuscripts. So even though the physical manuscripts have been lost, we still have digital images of those manuscripts that some brave people scanned and we have for posterity. They smuggle them out on flash drives and things like that. It's amazing, uh, that they were willing to risk their lives to save a national treasure, what they consider as a national treasure. So there was trade, scholarship. Yes, I am glad you mentioned salt. Yes, salt and trade, salt and gold, and basically, well, uh, this was also religious exchange. And when I say religious exchange, basically the Islamic scholars from the Arabian world were actually coming to West Africa at the invitation of the West Africans to preach. And if you bring in salt, you are certainly showing that you know more about West Africa than what this picture dictates, and that would be a legitimate answer. So one is the establishment of Timbuktu. The other one is actually trade, founded on gold and salt, helped expansion of the empire, of course. And one of the other things that you can also bring up is that Mansa Musa used Islam as a unifying force, or as a force to unify West Africa. So there are quite a few points that you can bring up, and notice we've been talking about it, and I'm sure when I first put this picture up, you said, "Yeah, what can I do with this picture?" And now all of a sudden, I see from your responses, and probably many others that I don't see, that there is quite a bit going on. And if you know anything about the Saharan trade, the trans-Sahara trade routes, you know that this meant that there was more specialized labor, better economic opportunities now. If you knew where those watering holes were to cross the Sahara Desert, things like that. Yes, that's more trade, that's more expansion, and that is more power as well. Greater tax revenues that happen here. So yes. Yesterday, remember we had a session from, or we had one of the questions from Ibn Battuta. Ibn Battuta actually did travel to Mali, um, and one of the things you could bring up here is that as Timbuktu was established, the uh, uh, the Arab explorers wanted to go to Timbuktu because it was known as the seat of knowledge. The European explorers wanted to go to Timbuktu because they thought of it as the city of gold. They thought the roads were paved with gold and things like that. So uh, um, that's reaching a little bit further, but certainly if you could work that in, it might be hard to work that in. But if you could work that in, that certainly shows your knowledge of the area, and looking at not just the expansion of the empire, but how, as the empire expanded, here is evidence that the empire expanded. You still need to list these things because this is what led to the expansion of the empire, and then the evidence that shows that it was an expanded empire. Okay, ready for the next one? Yeah. Oh, nice, 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 nice. Okay, so we travel from west to east. Not much here, right? Mongol archer on horseback, Sira 1200s. What was going on in the 1200s with the Mongols? I'm looking for one name. Well, okay, maybe his name is like two different things. Two names, or two words that make up his name, I guess. Okay. I'm going to read the question, and if things show up, that's going to be great. I'd love to see the answers. A says, identify and explain two innovations presented in the image above that gave the Mongols a military advantage. take a look at this question too. This is a little bit harder sample question, because then it says identify one. Notice that they shifted from military advantage to social factor. One social factor that allowed the Mongols to expand the Mongol Empire. Yes! Nice! Nice! If you said Temujin, that works as well. Temujin was his name, and his name before he took the title of Genghis Khan. So if you said Temujin, that's okay as well. And if you thought about that, you are awesome. Well, horse warfare was around at that time, but this is a little bit different, right? This is a little bit different. So the first thing that you will notice is, what's this guy's weapon? Right? Typically, when you think of horse warfare, you think of lances and swords. You don't think of bows and arrows. Yeah, yeah. You see a saddle, you see an archer on horseback, which is unusual because now that gives your archers quite a bit to maneuver, right? Quite a bit of room to maneuver. They're not on foot. They are on horseback, so you can move them around. They have really long range with their arrows. So some of the things you may come across. So you have an archer on horseback. Okay. You have the saddle. Yes. You have stirrups. And you have the compound bow. If you think about the bow at that time, they had the crossbow. And if you wanted to load the crossbow, you basically had a machine to load it. And it took you some time to load it. Yes, it was powerful when it shot the arrow. It pierced armor. This is how Richard the Lionheart died, because a crossbow archer actually shot him with his crossbow. It pierced his armor and got to him. So yes, the compound bow was pretty interesting. You had the compound when the Mongols invaded Hungary. What the Hungarian archers found out is that the compound bow had a longer range than their longbows, than their bows, and they were very surprised, because this is a much smaller bow. Yeah, you said maneuverability. Nice, 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 nice. Yes. Okay, so this is light, effective, uh, uh, what, soldiers, which gave them a lot of maneuverability. This was actually the major advantage that the Mongols had. Remember, the Mongols defeated the samurai in Japan, and they also went all the way west. They defeated the knights in Hungary, and they defeated Baghdad, the Islamic Empire, went all the way west, and were finally stopped by the Mamluks in Egypt, in Africa. If you look at the training and the equipment that they had, man for man, the standard Mongol soldier, the standard samurai, was better trained and better equipped than the Mongol soldiers were. The elite troops were different. Okay, with the elite troops we had different things, but for your standard soldiers, that's what happened. And yet the Mongols defeated the samurai in Japan. One of the ways they did that is because of the way they could very quickly move and change battle plans. Battle plans are not depicted here. This is just a horseman uh, on a soldier on a horse. One of the things that will get you some extra points, though, is that if you know the breed of this horse, if you know the breed of the horse that the Mongols used, and does anyone in chat room know that? So these are the horses that are bred in the steppes. These are the Fergana horses. The Fergana horses are very durable. They are very compact. They're good for riding long distances. They are fast. Legend has it that when they breathe, you can see the blood. We think that the description was probably that as they were breathing, it was the fog and it was either sunrise or sunset. So it looked like they were breathing blood. But that's what they have. These are the Fergana horses that are really well equipped for basically warfare, or for this type of warfare. The Mongols, of course, had more than one horse. They would take like 3 horses to battle per mounted warrior, so they could change out horses easily as well. Yes, so we're looking at one social factor, right, that allowed them to expand. Now, when you're looking at taxes, now you're looking at economic factors. Yes, good. Yes, I like that social factor about Pax Mongolia. So basically, what they were doing, as far as social factors, what you are looking at is safety and security, right? So legend has it that during Mongol times, and of course the Mongol Empire was only around for 90 years, it wasn't around that long. But at its height, a young woman, supposedly unarmed, could walk the entire length of the Silk Road with a gold tray on her head and be completely safe, have no fear of being molested or robbed or anything like that. What I'm going to tell you is that yes, the tray made it along the Silk Road, but the woman did not. And the reason for that is because people at that time, when they traded, they traded with their neighbors, and then those neighbors traded with those neighbors. So just because you find Chinese coins Roman coins in China, which was the length of the Silk Road, doesn't mean a Roman carried them all the way to China. The Roman gave them to his neighbor, who gave them to his neighbor, who gave them to his neighbor, and that is how they traveled the Silk Road. So I use that example as a more as something that will make you smile as well, that the tray made it, but the woman did not. So I hope you got a laugh out of that, or at least a smile out of that. What are some of the other social factors? What are some of the other social factors that defined uh, the uh, Mongol Empire? So some of the things that defined the Mongol Empire, and there is a newer search here. So if you're interested in looking at that on your own, basically Timothy May is Tim May is the historian who's actually gone in and studied. He actually went and learned the Turkic languages so he could go back to the original sources and read them in the Turkic sources. So some of the things are freedoms, like personal freedoms. So you had freedom of religion. Um, uh, there weren't as many social barriers. There were, I mean, compared to today's standards, they were. But if you look at, let's say, Temujin's general Zuberai, and some of the people who were around him, they had very humble beginnings that had them rise to power as well. So uh, you know, you also had women's rights, and I have to say this sort of loosely because their rights were rights to ownership, rights to cattle, things like that. They were allowed to own land. Yes, they did. They did. There was religious tolerance as well, at least in the beginning. Yes, they did. That was the dynamics of that is pretty interesting how that happened. Uh, but a lot of it rests from all of this, as well as interesting is rule of law. Now, granted, the law was what the sun god demanded of them, and that's the way it was phrased. But pretty much it was rule of law, and if you were a prince and you broke the law, you were punished for it. Uh, you can cite an example how one of Gayuk's sons did that, and he was punished for it. Uh, yes, the Mongols themselves were a shaman, and they had shamanistic rituals, but certainly we can look at all of these as social factors, and if you know them, that is awesome. If you can expound on them, you just need one. If you can expound on them, that would be great. And you see how they actually tie into each other um, as you read this. Okay, of course, Temujin was very shrewd. What he did is his daughters, he married them off to form political alliances, which is what he then went ahead and exploited. This is not, this question doesn't ask for that. Uh, so bringing that up actually would take up space here. It would not help your cause. It would not help your essay because you are not looking at a social factor. You're looking at a political factor. So, I did want to bring that up that, there could be a faux pas here. And it's very tempting to bring up what you know. You may have been more exposed to that. Okay, so please read the question um, and answer accordingly. Okay, it looks like we are running out of time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to let you glance at the others. I'm not going to go through them because I want to make sure I cover the rest of it. I will go back and cover these sessions, these questions if we have the time. So this one here, the next one that I have, is actually about libraries in the Muslim land. Right, so here is a library that's being opened. I don't expect you to read this. This is probably the one we will not get to today. But I wanted you at least to see it if you wanted to refer to it later. This one here is actually, if you look at the illustration here, James Watt's mechanical steam engine. Notice that what it says, identify two specific technological advances that benefited from the development of Watt's engine. So here is Watt's engine. what did this engine help invent specifically, and then explain one specific long-term effect of the introduction of what engine uh, on the technological advances that you may have referenced. Now, the easy tech advances to reference are Robert Fulton's steamship and George Stephenson's locomotive. And once I say that, you know where that can be used. The economic and trade impacts are enormous. If you looked at the automation of the mills, you knew that that was powering the Industrial Revolution. So you can make some ties to the Industrial Revolution with this kind of image. Okay, how do you approach a short answer question? So I know I had this yesterday for multiple choice. I hope that was helpful, and because I thought it was helpful, what I wanted to do is I wanted to have one for the short answers as well here. So identify the geographical and temporal time period. That's the first thing. List major drivers of the era. And you were doing that: social, political, scientific, military, cultural, religious, whatever those may be. So if you go back to Mansa Musa, if you knew of his Hajj trip, then you would be looking for religious symbolisms in that picture. So although the mosque was hidden, you would be able to find it, for instance. Right, so that's why I'm saying if you prime yourself up, you may find things that are a little bit more obscure and point to them. So let the reader know that I found it here. Okay, so read the question and outline your essay. And what's your essay about? Well, you can make 3 good points. You won't be able to use them all, but you'll be able to use 2. That's one way. That these are the 3 major points I want to make. Maybe you'll make 2, but that's okay. You can make a chronological argument. This happened, which led to that, which led to that. So that's more of a, yeah, some people may call it a causal argument. So if you want to call it a causal argument, that's okay. In history, though, what you are looking at as a causal argument may actually seem like a chronological one. The other one is identify similarities and differences. Okay, so here you're saying these are what the similarities are, these are what the differences are, and that gives you a little bit more room to bring something else down, another civilization, another era down. I would not do that because that's a difficult argument to write. It's excellent when done well. If done poorly, it's a complete disaster. This is the easiest one to work on. This one is the next one. After that, it's refuting opposing arguments. So essentially what you want to do here is you want to put together an argument that, let's say, someone who disagrees with you is going to put up, and then you show the flaws in their argument. This is the weakest form of argument. It really is. That doesn't mean you have to prove that you are right. What you're doing is you're proving that somebody else is wrong, and therefore, probably by extension, what you are saying is right. And notice that as far as argument styles go, it's relatively weak, but it can be effective, especially if you're stuck with a difficult question and you need to move on. If you are doing the digital one, you may find yourself in that spot. So you may want to, if it's an area you're not as familiar with, or something like that, you may have to put something like this just to move on. And stick to your outline. You can ruin an essay by having a good outline, and then when you start writing, you change your mind and then want to do something else. Remember, you've spent some time with your outline. If you spend some time with your outline, chances are it's good. Okay, you can type. So basically, you're looking for 1 to 2 paragraphs. You're not looking for that much. So for each question, A and B, basically that's 2 paragraphs, right? Generally, you can say 2 paragraphs because A sort of leads you to B in most cases. So you're just looking at 2 paragraphs. Remember, a paragraph is about 5-6 sentences. So it's not that much. Okay. You are spending probably just under half your time, a third to just under half your time in the planning, and the rest of your time in writing. Okay. Okay. So how do you prepare for the AP effectively? Know the format and the instructions ahead of time. I know they are evolving, but know them ahead of time. Understand the content that will be tested. Practice under test conditions. And one of the things when I say practice under test conditions is also practice with a mask on. You may be asked if you are taking it in school or even at the school computer center, you may be required to wear a mask. So if you are required to wear a mask, wear one. There is a mask I really like. It's my cloth mask, but for test conditions, or for tests, I actually use the surgical mask. It is lighter. It is it is a little bit more form-fitting because it's a single-use mask. So that's the one that I like. I can tuck it underneath my glasses, so it doesn't fog up my glasses as much. Uh, just because you have a favorite mask, I certainly do. Uh, you know, see which mask works for you. And of course, what you want to do is, even though you may know the content, most people spend virtually all of their time here. What you need to do is you need to practice your content. And so you can adjust your strategy. Remember, if you think of this as winning a game, championship games are not won on game day. They're actually won on the practice field. So make sure your practice is there, because on game day, I used to tell my little league team that they don't rise to the occasion, they fall to their practice. So that's why we were practicing as much as we were, so that even when we fell to our practice, we did okay. And of course, plan to celebrate after the test. Certainly plan to celebrate. No matter how you do, at least it's going to make you look at, give you something to look forward to. So how can we help at Princeton Review? At Princeton Review, our strength. Well, you can as far as to clarify 5-6 sentences for just prompt A. Well, prompt A will not need that many, right? I mean, you will need that many for maybe prompt B, which is a little bit more meatier. So prompt A can be a little bit shorter. Okay, so if you have well, you need to have more than one sentence. If you have a minimum of 3, you should be okay. You're probably looking at 4 just to make your case. Okay. At Princeton Review, our strength is how to take the standardized test, and we have tutors and instructors ready to help. And what are the resources that are available? These types of sessions, the live streams, the AP live streams. There are several subjects that are coming up. Shadna and Brian, they both just got off a physics one before coming to world history. So imagine the change they had to go through, right? From very calc-based physics to world history. We do have scheduled tutoring as well, so you can call Princeton Review and ask for a tutor. There is on-demand tutoring as well, that's online. And we also have our, basically the on-demand tutoring is you will get a tutor right there as you try our online services. And then there is AP cram courses, where these are courses that are designed to give you the content, the high yield content for the AP. I'm almost out of time here. And we have the cracking books as we look at them here. So at a minimum, do something to prep for the AP, something beyond what your teacher gives you, like try to take a full length test. Your teacher may not have the time to give you a practice full length test. At least do that. Okay. And with that, I am out of time. Our next session is in a couple of weeks, and I know schedules may change. If you can't make it, in a couple of weeks. Of course, the recording will be available, but I do want to give you a clip art. It's my favorite one. I call her the Karate Girl because this is what I hope you do to all your tests. I will certainly take any questions if there are any. If not, I hope to see you next World History session. And of course, if you will not be there because it's a few weeks out, yeah, I can understand. And I hope you had fun. So next session, I will be covering the document-based question.